Spike Lee remains to this day one of the most influential and instantly recognizable filmmakers of all time. His distinctive filmatic style and characterization do not simply make him and his projects stand out amongst his peers, who too have distinctive styles, but ultimately heighten the impact of his messages and social commentary. An advocate against racial inequality, Lee has always utilized the medium of film to highlight the horrors of racism and spread awareness. Do the Right Thing delivering a devastating portrait of Black America pushed to the limit by his distinctive style that ultimately reinforces his key messages by delivering a more culturally authentic narrative. This chosen extract thoroughly demonstrates how this style heightens the racial animosity present within the film, Lee actively commenting on the racial tension present even much earlier in the day of the film's setting, while also foreshadowing the eventual climax of Mookie throwing the trash can through Sal's window. Where Spike Lee's distinctive filmmaking really diverts from traditional cinema and even other films that strive to convey important messages, is the way in which he actively tells us, the audience, his messages instead of embedding them into the narrative for the viewer to find. Through a multitude of filmmaking techniques, Lee strives to directly tell his audience, whether in the bounds of the narrative or outside it, what issues he is tackling and illustrate why they are important. The most obvious example of Lee's direct communication to the audience remains his frequent use of shots from a first-person perspective. Even within this short extract, there are numerous employments of this shot that Lee utilizes to best position the audience to receive his key messages and emotions. Whereas nearly every other shot in existence constricts the audience to being an observer of the narrative, this kind of first-person angle directly infuses the viewer into being an active element of the story, generating a sense of intimacy and emotional connection to the scene's characters and environment. Removing emotional distance, this allows Lee to force his audience to empathize with his characters, and as a result, they are no longer merely watching racism, but actively feeling the damage it inflicts. Demonstrating one of the film's central positions on racism, that being to showcase the danger it presents to all members of society. Lee immediately expands upon this idea through Mookie and Pino's initial conversation.
Pino, fuck you, fuck your fucking pizza, and fuck Frank Sinatra.
Yeah? Well, fuck you too, and fuck Michael Jackson.
Where its framing and mise-en-scène encapsulate their relationship, internal characteristics, and underlying beliefs. This verbal standoff is tightly framed, Lee avoiding the basic filmatic standard of over-shoulder shots, instead choosing to close in with medium shots that only include one character, ultimately creating a more suffocating dialogue. Furthermore, in addition to their dialogue, Pino and Mookie's facial expressions and body language subtly characterize their personal power dynamics, which come as a result of Lee's careful character directing. Pino is constantly moving his hands and head, stuttering his words, and most importantly, never maintains eye contact for more than 5 seconds, which is in stark contrast to Mookie, who throughout the entire scene remains completely still while never averting his gaze from Pino. This, on a physical level, represents Lee's idea that systematic racism has become a forced phenomenon, achieved through characterizing Pino as not being confident with himself or his words, revealing how his racial malice is merely a socially embedded standard he feels obligated to maintain, ultimately drawing sympathy from the audience. As described by Roger Ebert, Lee draws sympathy for all the characters as he wants us to identify with their fears and frustrations equally, which emphasizes the film's overarching calling for racial equality. This exchange showcases Lee's position on how, at its core, racism is an unnatural way of thinking and is instead systematically perpetrated. All this stemming as a result of Lee's careful and distinctive manipulation of composition and characterization.
Yo! Hold up! Time out! Time out! Y'all take a chill!
This is then promptly reinforced in the infamous racial slur montage directly following the diner scene. A staple of Do the Right Thing and one of Spike Lee's most shocking moments as a filmmaker, the viewer is attacked by a montage of fourth wall breaking, one-on-one dialogues of characters from different ethnic groups berating the camera with racial slurs and insults. Packed with idiosyncratic detail of character and event, Lee abandons context, continuity, and the character on the receiving end to directly place his viewers in the shooting range of every breathtakingly crude insult, regardless of whether their ethnicity aligns with the one being insulted. Lee's quick and straightforward intercutting between the different aggressors creates the sense that this is all one coherent dialogue, despite the fact that the targeted group constantly changes.
Dago Wab, Ganny, garlic bread, pizza slinging, spaghetti bending.
Fast running, high jumping, spear chucking, 360-degree basketball dunking.
Slanty-eyed, Mino speaky American, own every fruit and vegetable stand in New York.
15 in a car, 30 in an apartment, pointy shoes, red wearing, menudo, meter, Puerto Rican.
Chocolate, egg cream drinking, bagel and lots, banana for this Jew, asshole.
In this way, Lee's unique editing and cinematography illustrate the idea that all racism comes from the same place and harms not only the race being insulted, but all ethnicities as a whole, as it validates this kind of language and berating.
And that's the double root.
Another element of Spike Lee's filmmaking that articulates Do the Right Thing's stance on racial inequality is the way in which he uses various references to popular culture to symbolically bolster the audience's connection to the film's narrative. A movie made by a filmmaker working in sync with his times, as said by Hal Hinson, Lee inserts notable iconography and makes mention of current social events and people in order to transform characters and objects into symbols, which in turn allows him to cement his messages through the fate of those symbols. Portrayed by Lee himself, the character of Mookie is notably shown to wear Jackie Robinson's Brooklyn Dodgers jersey, Robinson being the first black American to play professional baseball in 1947. Breaking the color barrier, Robinson's entry to the league stands as a turning point in American civil rights activism. So by having Mookie bear this iconic jersey for the majority of the film, he pushes the audience to connect the character to a larger symbol. That being the legacy of one man enduring through racial oppression and conformity to eventually persevere and spark a genuine change for their community.
Good man. Fight the power. Fight the power. We got to fight the powers that be. Elvis was a hero to most, but he never meant shit to millions.
Similarly, Lee also utilizes Public Enemy's Fight the Power as a cultural symbol to characterize a more violent stance on racism present within the film. Taking the role of a gentle giant to his friends and wrecking ball to those who oppose him, Radio Raheem's simplistic, right and wrong, love or hate nature results in his boombox talking for him.
Fight the power. We got to fight the powers that be.
As such, the confrontational lyrics of Public Enemy, who were New York cultural icons themselves at the time, that called upon blacks to stand up for themselves against racism, characterized Raheem as the central symbol of black resistance against oppression. Consequently, when Spike Lee has Sal demand for the music to be turned off,
Turn that shit off!
it symbolizes to the audience the silencing of black identity and culture, which is only further exacerbated at the film's conclusion with Sal smashing the boombox. Conclusively, through delicate framing, harsh editing, confronting dialogue, and symbolic references to popular culture, Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing presents a distinct dialogue on racial discourse within America, its divergent style and form ultimately forcing its viewers to confront the reality of their own role in the conflict.